every Saturday.
Subscribe to JW Outdoors.
Our 50 biggest road trip fails. We've visited all of the lower 48 states in the U.S. This involved driving over 30,000 miles, staying in various accommodations, hiking unknown miles of trails, visiting many national and state parks, and stopping at a lot of roadside attractions. Our road trips have included many mishaps, or fails as we like to call them. So here are our 50 biggest road trip fails in no particular order. Number 1, fail location, Seneca Rocks, West Virginia. We were sleeping in a teepee at Yoakum's Vacation Land with a great view of Seneca Rocks. Everything was going great until it started storming after we went to sleep. We found out quickly that the teepee window leaked a lot. We spent the night emptying a bucket every 15 minutes that we placed under the drip. There was also a flash flood at the campground that night, but luckily the floodwaters didn't reach our teepee. Number 2, fail location, Franconia, New Hampshire. On the second day of our 4-day stay exploring the New Hampshire mountains, we hiked the Lonesome Lake Trail, 1.5 miles up a mountain to trout fish in Lonesome Lake. While the lake was beautiful and the fishing was excellent, the trail kicked our butts. Never had we hiked such a steep, rugged, rocky trail before. A lot of the trail involved boulder hopping, and it was a steamy, hot June day. We were exhausted, and it took several days to recover. Number 3, fail location, Conkey, Florida. They say when saltwater fishing in Florida, all fish will either fin you or bite you. We were bridge fishing one day and handling a spiky looking fish, and I got finned on the hand. It was bleeding quite a bit, and we were a mile from the van in the middle of a day of fishing, and we had no band-aids or first aid kit. We were able to make a makeshift gauze with a spare fishing glove, and we used some duct tape to hold it on my hand while we slipped a fishing glove over top of my hand to hold everything in place. Number 4, fail location, Canyon Village, Wyoming. When we arrived to camp for 5 days at the Canyon Village campground at Yellowstone National Park, we saw a sign on the shower building that said the showers were out of service. So if we wanted a shower, we'd have to drive an hour to get one. After a few days, we chose to drive to the Canyon Street Laundromat in West Yellowstone. We've never visited a laundromat to get a shower, and the place was a little rough, but the showers were hot. Number 5, fail location, Oric, California. We spent 3 days camping at the Elk Prairie campground at Redwood National Park. One day we were watching a herd of elk graze in the prairie and decided to drive around to the other side of the prairie to get a closer look at the elk. There was a vacant campsite near the prairie, so we pulled in the site on the blacktop and got out for a quick look and to take some video. Unbeknownst to us, a park ranger, I think her name was Karen, spotted us and quickly walked a couple hundred yards to our location and yelled at us while we were watching the elk. You can hear her in the video. "Excuse me, hello?" She advised us that although the campsite was vacant, we weren't allowed to park there to view elk. We stated that we made sure the site was vacant and we were only stopping for a few minutes. She rudely said, "Well, we don't do that here."
I'm sleeping. We were over there. We come back around so we could get closer to them. That's awesome. Yeah, they're bedded down. Yeah, they're bedded down.
Number 6, fail location, Gulfport, Mississippi. While staying in Gulfport, some friends offered to take us jet skiing in the nearby bayou. After a couple hours of jet skiing, we talked Amanda, against her better judgment, into joining us on one of the jet skis. After traveling a mile or more down the bayou, we stopped to admire some huge ships that were unloading cargo. But when we stopped and we were watching the ships, we all three leaned the same way and the jet ski quickly rolled onto its side and upside down. We had life jackets on but kind of panicked before figuring out how to flip it back over and climb back aboard. It didn't act right on the ride back to the boat ramp and was smoking, so our friend took the jet ski to the repair shop to make sure there was no damage. Amanda never wanted to ride in the first place. Number 7, fail location, Seattle, Washington. On our way through Seattle, we wanted to stop and see the Seattle Seahawks Stadium, Lumen Field. We quickly learned we had picked a bad time to visit Seattle because as we entered downtown, we were greeted by thousands of Seattle Mariners and Seattle Sounders FC soccer fans. A professional baseball game and a professional soccer game had just both ended. The traffic was insane. Number 8, fail location, Walcott, Iowa. On our way home from out west one year, we stopped at the Iowa 80, the world's largest truck stop. This place was huge. It has 3 floors, an elevator, a huge gift shop, restaurant, trucker's loft, game room, showers, laundry, barber, dentist, library, TV lounge, and a movie theater. However, a trucker started following Amanda and saying some weird things to her. I guess we saw the creepy side of the Iowa 80 truck stop. Number 9, fail location, Gulfport, Mississippi. Getting good video footage of catching lots of fish is rare to do. While in Gulfport, we hopped aboard a ferry to visit Ship Island in the Gulf of America. We spent the day catching catfish one after another. The next day, we spent the morning fishing off a rock jetty in Gulfport. It was another great day of fishing for all of us. Later that day, we headed across the street to the beach to cool off. While floating on tubes in shoulder-deep water, we dropped our GoPro and watched it disappear into the water. We were out pretty deep, and after frantically searching for it, the GoPro was gone forever. And with the GoPro went all of our fishing footage from Ship Island and the rock jetty. Big fail. Number 10, fail location, Stuart, Florida. We arrived at our campsite at the St. Lucie South Campground in the late afternoon. We had reserved a beautiful campsite overlooking the St. Lucie River. We immediately started fishing and catching lots of fish. However, there were more than just fish swimming in the river just 10 yards down the hill from where we were supposed to pitch our tent. A 4 to 5 foot alligator spent the entire time we were fishing trying to steal our fish or bait. This concerned us somewhat, being that we were going to be sleeping in a tent on the edge of the water. But we kept fishing until dusk, and that's when the mosquitoes swarmed us. They were relentless. We hadn't yet set up our tent and just couldn't imagine setting it up now that the mosquitoes were swarming. So we decided to spend the night in our van instead. The next morning when we awoke early to leave, we noticed we had a tire losing air. We headed to the nearest Walmart we could find and had to purchase a new tire due to a nail in the sidewall. Alligators, mosquitoes, and a flat tire. Triple fail. Number 11, fail location, Oakley, Kansas. While making our way back from the Grand Canyon, we stopped at the Little Jerusalem Badlands State Park to see the Badlands of Kansas. It looked like a very small version of the Badlands of South Dakota and North Dakota. However, when we all decided to use the pit latrine before climbing back in the van for more driving, we were greeted by hundreds of crickets. It literally seemed as though we were in a horror movie. Who knew Kansas had an abundance of crickets? Number 12, fail location, Vicksburg, Mississippi. After visiting the Vicksburg National Military Park, we headed to our campground to set up our tent before grabbing dinner. We arrived at the Battlefield Campground late in the afternoon, and it was one of the worst campgrounds we'd ever seen. We checked in at an office beside some rough-looking motel rooms at the entrance. We then drove up the hill past a playground that needed some updates before arriving at our campsite, which was basically some grass between the road and some brush. There were a few RVs and campers scattered around, but most of them looked like they'd been abandoned. It was a rainy evening, so there were no other people outside. The real wake-up call for us was when we walked up to check out the restroom and shower building. It was less than acceptable. This campground was so bad, when we were leaving for dinner, we actually stopped a local police officer and asked him if we were safe to sleep in a tent in this area. Number 13, fail location, Warner Valley, California. We arrived at the Manzanita Lake Campground at Lassen Volcanic National Park and found cabin number 20 behind the park store. The next day we were leaving the campground and we accidentally drove up a one-way road that is no more than 40 yards long, and a young National Park employee rolled his window down and began yelling at us. He parked and went into the store for work, and we went into the store to return our cabin key. He was still furious and actually approached us and berated us for driving down the short one-way road. Number 14, fail location, Old Station, California. We stopped to hike the Subway Cave Lava Tube Trail. The cave is a third mile long and stays cool, about 46 degrees Fahrenheit, throughout the year. There are many sections of the cave that are completely dark. The fail here is that William, Walker, and Wyatt remembered to bring their headlamps, but their father forgot his headlamp. So their father spent the entire 1/3 mile hike stubbing his toe and tripping over jagged rocks. Number 15, fail location, Naples, Florida. We spent a day exploring the Everglades National Park, then found our campground nearby. The Collier Seminole State Park campground was right off the highway and looked really nice. It was about an hour before sunset, so we found our reserved campsite and started unpacking the tent. However, the sand flies or gnats immediately started flying into our faces and biting us, and were so bad that we decided to go grab dinner and then sleep in the van at our campsite if they were still bad when we returned. We left and stopped nearby at the only restaurant within miles, but it was closing. We checked our phones for other places to eat, and the next closest restaurant was 15 minutes away. So we decided to head back to camp, set up the tent, then go have dinner. We arrived back at the campground just after 5 p.m., but the gates were already closed and locked. We read through our campground reservation, which said if you plan to arrive after sunset, to call the park before 5 p.m. for the gate combination. It was after 5 p.m. There was no way to talk to a park employee, and it was about a half-mile walk to the campground. We could walk to the campground and hope to find someone who knew the campground gate combination, or we could just start driving north towards our next campground, which was 5 hours away. We decided to start driving and ended up spending the night in the van at a rest stop outside Tampa. Number 16, fail location, Dyess, Arkansas. We stopped to see the Johnny Cash Museum and then boarded a shuttle bus to go see Johnny's boyhood home. A college student drove the shuttle bus, and he drove way too fast on the gravel roads. We thought we were going to die in rural Arkansas. The college student played Johnny Cash music really loud though, which was cool. Fail avoided. Number 17, fail location, Klamath, California. We stopped to drive through the famous tore-through tree. We folded the van mirrors in, but didn't allow the same amount of space on both sides of the van and started scraping my driver's side mirror. We had to back out and drive through the tore-through tree again. Number 18, fail location, College Park, Maryland. While camping outside Washington, D.C. at Cherry Hill Park, we noticed there were a lot of aggressive squirrels around the campsite. It was the nicest campground we had ever stayed at, but we left our coolers on the picnic table, went swimming, and came back to a hole chewed through one of our coolers. Darn Maryland squirrels. Number 19, fail location, Air Force Academy, Colorado. We stopped to see Air Force Falcon football stadium. After checking out the stadium, the boys were passing football in the parking lot, and Wyatt went out for a pass and tripped over the curb and scraped up his knees, elbows, and hands. What made this worse was that we were headed for the Great Sand Dunes National Park next, and sand in scraped up knees, elbows, and hands wasn't going to be fun. Number 20, fail location, Conch Key, Florida. We went kayaking one day and the skies were clear. Once we got all the way around the key and almost to the bridge that goes under the Overseas Highway, the skies opened up and it started pouring rain so hard that we thought our kayaks were going to fill up with water. It was a wet paddle back to our rental house. Number 21, fail location, Megler, Washington. Every time we visit a new state, we get our photo with the state welcome sign. When we crossed over the bridge from Oregon to Washington, we stopped at the Dismal Niche rest area to get our photo with the Welcome to Washington sign. The only problem was there wasn't a Welcome to Washington sign, so we settled for a photo with the Dismal Niche Department of Transportation sign, but the Washington State words were so faded you couldn't even make them out. I had to doctor up the photo when we returned home. Number 22, fail location, Bar Harbor, Maine. While at Acadia National Park in Maine, we visited Sand Beach. The boys went in for a swim, and the North Atlantic water was so cold that Walker nearly turned blue. Number 23, fail location, Plymouth, Connecticut. We camped at Gentiles Campground. The campground was nice with a pool, playground, game room, baseball field, etc. But when we picked our site to reserve several months before our arrival, we picked site 191, which was right beside the shelter house. On our last day there, a crowd rolled in and had a birthday party at the shelter house, and people were walking through our campsite all day. Never book a site beside a shelter house. Number 24, fail location, Ryan Park, Wyoming. We stopped at Mirror Lake, which is along the Snowy Range Scenic Byway in Wyoming. It was late May, so there were still lots of snow on the ground at high elevations. Walker got a little too close to the lake, and suddenly the snow gave way and tumbled into the lake. Luckily, he was quick enough to jump away from the lake before falling in. Fail avoided. Number 25, fail location, Ontonagon, Michigan. We camped for several days at the Union River Big Bear Campground in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. This campground is in the western UP near Porcupine Wilderness State Park, which is referred to as being 2 miles past the end of the earth. So it's in the middle of nowhere. On the day we were set to leave, we spent a couple hours packing up camp, then everybody loaded up in the van, and the van's battery was dead. The campground owner put a slow charger on it, and after a couple hours the van started. However, the campground owner told us not to stop until we were at an auto parts store where we could get a new battery. We left the campground and drove 2 hours south and arrived at the nearest auto parts store at 4:45 p.m. The store closed on Sundays at 5 p.m., so we made it right in time to buy a new battery. Number 26, fail location, Yarmouth, Maine. While traveling through Maine, we made a quick stop to see the world's largest revolving and rotating globe. Eartha, as the globe is known by, is located in an office building, and we were just after business hours, but the doors were unlocked, so we went in and started checking it out. Come to find out, there was a private party going on, and we really weren't supposed to be in there. Number 27, fail location, West Yellowstone, Wyoming. We were traveling through Yellowstone National Park and stopped at a scenic overlook of the Madison River. We decided to go in and cool off since this area of the river was slow and calm and about knee deep. What we didn't know was there were leeches in the slower and calmer areas of the Madison River, and they attached themselves to you very quickly. We also found out when you pull leeches off, it leaves a scraped and bleeding area on your skin. Number 28, fail location, Crescent City, California. Our first time seeing the Pacific Ocean was a memorable one. We parked and walked to the end of the B Street Pier to fish for a while. After fishing for half an hour with no luck, Wyatt finally had a bite. His fishing pole was bent and we thought he had a big one. He started reeling, and out of the water at the end of his line came a bird attached to his hook. Wyatt got the bird up to the pier, and the bird was squawking loudly. It was quite the scene at the end of the B Street Pier until we got the hook out and released it. Number 29, fail location, Gold Beach, Oregon. Driving up the Oregon Coast Highway, we stopped to see the Pistol River Scenic Viewpoint, where the Pistol River parallels then empties into the Pacific Ocean. There are large sand dunes along the coast in this area of Oregon, so we took off on the short trail up the sand dune. Once we got on top of the first sand dune, the wind off the Pacific Ocean was blowing sand in our faces. I lost my hat and the boys had to climb through chest-high grass to retrieve it. It was a quick visit and our hair, eyes, and clothes were full of blowing sand.
Lost my hat. It's a little windy out at the Pistol River.
Number 30, fail location Newport, Oregon. Further up the Oregon Coast Highway, we stopped at the Sea Lion Docks. Here, sea lions routinely come into the port from the Pacific Ocean and sunbathe around the docks. Unfortunately, the day we were there must not have been a good day for sunbathing. We didn't see any sea lions. Number 31, fail location Boulder, Utah. While driving the very curvy scenic Highway 12 around Boulder Mountain, Amanda spotted a motorcycle which had crashed down the hill off the highway. We immediately turned around and went back and rushed down the hill and found a Harley and an older gentleman in bad shape. He had crashed down over the hill into a field of boulders. This was the beginning of a 3-hour life-saving mission that eventually ended with a life flight helicopter landing nearby to transport the motorcyclist to the hospital. This wasn't our fail, but a huge fail of another traveler. Number 32, fail location Cedar Crest, New Mexico. While traveling through New Mexico, we stopped for the night at the Turquoise Trail campground. We had reserved a cabin there, and it turned out to be one of the dustiest places we'd ever stayed. The cabin wasn't the best place we'd stayed, and there was a family living in a large tent camped right behind us. It was certainly an interesting stay. Number 33, fail location Bryce Canyon, Utah. We were hiking the Bristlecone Loop Trail at Bryce Canyon National Park to see some of the oldest pine trees in the world. About halfway through the trail, we looked up and there was a Great Basin rattlesnake crossing the trail a couple feet in front of us. The rattlesnake had a chipmunk in its mouth, and we stood back and let it slither across the trail to the other side, then watched it devour the chipmunk. Had we been just a few seconds earlier, or had we not been paying attention to the trail ahead, we might have stepped on the rattlesnake. Fail avoided. Number 34, fail location Moab, Utah. After exploring the LaSalle Mountain Loop Scenic Drive near Moab, where the temperatures were pleasant during the high elevation, we drove off the mountain and stopped to check out the historic Red Cliffs Lodge and dip our feet in the Colorado River. However, we weren't expecting the temperature to be so different in the canyon. Our car was registering 106 degrees Fahrenheit, so our short walk down to the Colorado was a little hot to say the least. Number 35, fail location South Bend, Washington. We stopped to see the world's largest oyster in the oyster capital of the world, South Bend, Washington. We've seen a lot of the world's largest things around the U.S., and the world's largest oyster ranks at the bottom of the list. Number 36, fail location Arches National Park, Utah. We hiked the trail to see the Sand Dune Arch. While the arch was impressive, the trail was through a tight rock formation in soft sand, and the wind was blowing sand in our eyes the entire hike. It was also very hot. Number 37, fail location Weed, California. We were traveling Highway 97 in Northern California, and a pickup truck ran a stop sign and drove right across the highway in front of us. We swerved quickly into the grass on the side of the road and just barely missed them. Fail avoided. Number 38, fail location Mitchell, South Dakota. We stopped to see the world's only corn palace. It looked cool from the outside, but inside there were just a lot of exhibits about corn and all kinds of corn knickknacks to purchase. It was one of the biggest tourist traps we'd ever visited. Number 39, fail location Montrose, Colorado. We left Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park and intended to drive historic Route 50 to Boulder, Colorado. However, a few miles down Route 50, we found out the road was closed and the detour involved some very sketchy high elevation back roads. so we had to backtrack back to I-70, which added an extra 30 miles onto our trip. Number 40, fail location, Franconia, New Hampshire. We camped for 4 days at Lafayette Campground in the New Hampshire mountains. The campground was beautiful, but we found out why the black fly is the New Hampshire state bird. The black flies were relentless, and they would bite any skin not covered. Number 41, fail location, Capitol Reef National Park, Utah. We drove the Capitol Gorge Road, which was a dirt road through narrow canyons and crossed several dry streams. The road was very rough, dusty, and you were in the middle of nowhere. 2 weeks later, there was a major flash flood in this area. Fail avoided. Number 42, fail location, Topeka, Kansas. We camped at the Topeka KOA, which had a pond that was full of bullfrogs. The boys had specific instructions that this was catch and release only. However, they returned with one unfortunate frog that suffered a very well placed small rock to the head from 10 feet away by Walker. We got rid of the evidence quickly. All frogs pictured were alive when photographed. Number 43, fail location, Cascade, Colorado. We drove to the top of Pikes Peak, elevation 14,115 feet. The drive up and down was terrifying. We all suffered altitude sickness while at the peak, and it was snowing and very cold up there in June. The high altitude donuts were awesome though. Number 44, fail location, Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming. We finally made it to Yellowstone National Park and stopped for our photo with the sign. We then entered the northeast entrance, and in my excitement and lack of attention to driving, I ran the van off the road and we nearly crashed shortly after. Fail avoided. Number 45, fail location, Kansas City, Missouri. We were in Kansas City and wanted to try some of the best barbecue. We stopped at Big T's Barbecue against Amanda's better judgment. It was a shady part of town, and Amanda doesn't like barbecue anyway. We walked in and the place was a little dark and the floors were greasy. The boys and I enjoyed a tray of all of their barbecued meats, but Amanda was not impressed. Number 46, fail location, Alamosa, Colorado. We camped at the Alamosa KOA while visiting the Great Sand Dunes National Park. It was a nice campground. Our campsite was in a very back corner, and we were separated from the neighboring campsite by a fence, but they were just feet away. Our neighbors, a daughter and her mother, went to bed just before dark each night. There was a fire ban in the campground due to the dry conditions, so at night we sat around a propane fire pit that we had rented from the campground office. Campground employees showed up the first night and told us that someone had reported us for being too loud. We respectfully said we were just sitting around the fire talking. Later that night, campground employees showed up again because someone reported us for having a campfire. We respectfully said it was the propane fire pit we rented from the office. The next day we had a rude comment on our latest YouTube video from our neighbors. We were sure their names were both Karen. Number 47, fail location, Lucas, Kansas. We traveled out of our way to visit the artsy town of Lucas, Kansas. We went to the door of the world's largest collection of the world's smallest versions of the world's largest things, but they were closed. They didn't have regular hours, and there was a number to call, but we were told they weren't going to be open that day. We did see some other cool places in Lucas though. Number 48, fail location, Mosca, Colorado. We rented sandboards and went sandboarding at the Great Sand Dunes National Park. You had to cross a wide, shallow creek and walk a good distance to get to the top of the dunes. The wind was crazy and blowing sand in your eyes, mouths, and ears. We went fast going down the dunes on the boards, but we found out that falling on the sand dunes was similar to falling on concrete. Number 49, fail location, Burgess Junction, Wyoming. We made our way to the base of the Bighorn Mountains in Wyoming. After a steep and windy drive up, the views at the top were beautiful. However, going down the other side on Highway 14A was terrifying, with a 10% grade for over 10 miles on a curvy road. At one point, about halfway down, a National Forest employee passed us in a truck and waved us over to notify us that our brakes were smoking and that we needed to pull over and let them cool off. Adding to the excitement was the fact that Amanda had an upset stomach and had to do an emergency potty break behind a rock on top of the Bighorn Mountains. Double fail. Number 50. Fail location, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Traveling to Yellowstone National Park, we left our hotel in Sioux Falls early in the morning. William had a brace on his arm for his broken wrist, and we had brought 2 braces with us, one for swimming and one not to get wet. We hung the brace for swimming on the arm of the chair in our hotel room the night before after swimming in the pool. But the brace was black and the armchair was black, so we forgot to grab it before we left. We didn't figure out until we got about 30 minutes up the highway. A big fail and one very unhappy father. Bonus fail, number 51. Fail location, Lake Crescent, Washington. Amanda did not approve of my attire for dinner at the Lake Crescent Lodge one evening. The photo is worth 1,000 words. We hope you enjoyed the video, and please leave a comment and tell what your favorite fail was in the video.
Hit the subscribe button for more great videos.